Welcome to Board Gems. In this video, I'll be comparing the two editions of the classic Philippe Keyaerts board game Evo, or Evo, depending on how you roll. The left edition is the Eurogames edition from 2001, and on the right, the Asmodée edition from 2011. Same box size, very different presentations. On the left, very whimsical, almost childish. On the right is the wicked cool version. Oh, radical! Man, dinosaurs, and there are like people taming them. Wicked. I have to say I'm not really a fan of the fantasy version where dinosaurs are raised, but it does answer a question of who are you in this game? Because you control a species of dinosaurs, but why are you in control of its evolution? And in the new edition, the story is that you are a tribe and you are controlling the evolution of your species of dinosaurs. The back of the Eurogames edition doesn't show a lot. It does show the modular board, which is, to me, a nice selling point of the first edition, but otherwise shows game components without a lot of context. The 2011 edition shows a gameplay state, or at least the setup for a game. I'm showing you the sides of the boxes so you can see the difference in player range, etc. The original says 3 to 5 players, the new edition says 2 to 5. There isn't really a reason you couldn't play the game with 2 players. The game definitely benefits from more. The first edition shows 1 to 2 hours as the playtime, and the second edition shows 60 minutes. My experience, I probably would have put 90 minutes on the box, so kind of an average between 1 and 2 hours. First edition had a very simple cardboard insert and a bunch of different sized boards stacked on top, which is a little odd. 2 wells to put the bits. Second edition has these large player mats, I'll talk more about those in a second, and a thing that I appreciate more often than not is a nested plastic insert. So it has little spaces of the right shape for everything, a little space for the die and the cards. First edition rulebook is very clear. It's text heavy, there aren't really many or any graphical examples. It's mostly clear, except you kind of need to reference this chart to see how battling works. Based on how many horns the attacker and defender has, what the result of a 6-sided die roll will result in. Not intuitive. The second edition improved this by making a custom die. Second edition rulebook is wordy. They spend pages on flourishing text, trying to bring you into the world that they've created of raising dinosaurs. It's fine, there are graphical examples here, and again, the game explanation is mostly clear. There are sidebars that kind of show little stories of raising dinosaurs, including one particularly brutal one involving a little girl being ravaged by dinosaurs. What fun! The back of the rulebook has a list of all the possible traits for easy reference. First edition had 2 halves of a board, and each half was double-sided. One half has a tiny part of the island and a medium-sized part of the island. The other half of the board has a medium half of the island and a large half of the island. So you can put them together to make different sizes of islands. For 3-player, you'll use tiny and medium. For 5 players, you'll use medium and large. And for 4 players, you can either use small and large or 2 mediums. Second edition goes the small world route of having different boards, double-sided boards for different player counts. 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, and 5 players. These are the auction boards. In both cases, they show 5 rows, or columns in the case of second edition, with bids ranging from 0 to 6. You would lay out the traits, 1 per row or column, and then players will bid on these. In the normal rules of Evo, you would deal out 1 trait per player. A variant in the back of the rulebook does 1 fewer, which means 1 player is guaranteed to not get a trait. But one of the quote-unquote traits is to draw an event card. So it's just a one-time use thing, whereas everything else gets added to your board as an evolution of your dinosaur. They kind of went in between in second edition. You draw 1 fewer trait than number of players, but 1 bidding track is for drawing a card. So they kind of split the difference in second edition. First edition had a score track, goes around the outside of the bidding board. There have been complaints in games such as this that when you have player scores open, it encourages players to bash on the leader, but they made the same change in second edition that you saw Vinci/Vinci/Vinci undertake into Small World, which is replace them with scoring tokens that you take and keep face down. It does introduce hidden trackable information. You can see how many points each player gets, and then it's immediately hidden. Some players will be able to remember that, others won't. Is that better or worse than having open scores? Up to your group. Here's where we track initiative. In first edition, initiative was a trait. It was how long your tail was. So you could gain a tail token to increase the length of your tail, which would increase your initiative and be more likely to go earlier in turn order. In second edition, they just kind of worked that into the bidding tracks, that certain bidding tracks allow you to go earlier than other bidding tracks, and you factor that in with the auction. First edition board combines a few different things here. You saw the initiative track already at the bottom. In the middle is the climate. So you'll see the 4 different colors of terrains: beach, forest, hills, and mountains. And the black marker shows which is the ideal climate. All dinosaurs can live in the ideal climate. They can live a little bit hotter or colder, depending on whether they have the proper traits to protect them, and if they are in a space that is too away from the ideal climate, they will not survive. Second edition replaces it with a dial, kind of has like an astrolabe look to it. You'll see it shows different rows. The bottom row, the one closest to the middle, is the ideal terrain, and then above it, it shows what terrains are hotter, colder, or lethal. So it has the same effect. Maybe it's just the way my brain works, but it does a little bit of too good a job hiding the rationale behind it. Because like if you look at the top one, which is the current active climate, so beach is the ideal climate. Nothing is hotter than beach, so the hotter row is blank. On the top row, and this is a weird order too, I think, the top row, which is colder than beach, is forest, and then lethal is hills and mountains, those two which correspond to the brown and the gray in the first edition. They're more than 2 away. I find it kind of obfuscates the math behind it, the rationale behind it. The one on the left seems more clear to me because it makes that underlying reasoning clear. But maybe that's just how my brain works. Other people may be different. The third feature on the first edition's multi-use board is the Meteor track, which starts at 3, 4, or 5, depending on number of players. Then every round it moves 1 space, and then how likely the meteor will hit depends on a die roll late in the track. This is replaced in second edition with tiles, which are stacked and show how you rotate the previously shown astrolabe to change the climate. And the meteor is shuffled into the bottom couple. It does mean that it becomes more and less predictable. So it becomes less predictable because one of the tiles actually shows a double arrow, which is not possible in first edition to move 2 steps on the climate track. But there's only one of those. There's only one where it stays where it is. There's only 2 where it goes backwards. What that means is you can track which of these you've seen before and have a better idea as to what's coming up later. First edition's regular 6-sided die is used for several things, such as determining whether the meteor hits, how the climate is going to change, but it's very annoying to use it for battles because you have to look up on a chart. This has been simplified with a custom die in second edition. Math works out the same as far as I can tell, but is much clearer. The attacker rolls this die, and for example, if you get an X, the attacker always loses. If it's a horn with an equals, the attacker wins if they have an equal number of horns or more. The horn with a plus means that they win if they have 1 more horn or more than the defendant. It makes it much easier to figure out. You don't have to look up a chart. Event cards, my least favorite part of EVO. There are, I think, 25 in the first edition and only 15 in the second. These cards basically do the same thing, these 2 that I'm showing here. But again, you can see the whimsicalness of first edition versus the wicked, cool, radical nature of the second edition. The second edition's cards make it a little clearer as to when they come out. I'm not a fan of event cards in any games. That's all I'll say about these event cards. These are the player pieces. Discs with silhouettes in the first edition, all different silhouettes based on the players. So all the pinks have the same silhouette, all the blues have the same silhouette. In that sense, very colorblind friendly. In second edition, they're only differentiated by color. Now I am not colorblind, but these seem like a very good choice of colors for colorblind players. The player boards, my goodness. So that kind of cute little one on the far left, as you might guess, that's first edition. And I know that looks weird because they have 1 foot. How are they even standing up? But that's because they can move 1 space at the start of the game until they get more traits, which could include more legs. Every player has the same one. There's a very faint outline of the player color, which doesn't show up very well. In second edition, each player gets a massive player mat. It's as big as a board almost. And it has lovely art, which takes up most of the board. That player mat, you only use the bottom third of it. The top 2/3 shows your tribe and the dinosaur that maybe has a saddle on it or something. When I play a 4-player game, I tend to tuck these player mats under the board, so only the bottom half, say, is visible. Otherwise, it just takes up way too much table space. In first edition, the traits are little tokens, and when you get them, you add them to your dinosaur. You can have a little bit of fun choosing where on the dinosaur to add your things. Maybe you put a horn outside its butt if you want to, like that's an option. The trait tokens just go into specialized spaces on the bottom of the player mat in the second edition. One thing you'll note is that second edition, you start with 2 movement points pre-printed on the board, and there's a third one added here as a token. There's more dinosaur movement available in second edition from the get-go. Second edition also comes with these special trait tokens. There's 1 of each. So these are mixed in with the regular tokens. Some of them are just extra powerful, like double legs for movement, double horns when attacking, the equivalent of double horns when defending. But there's some crazy ones like killer babies, which allows you to try to spawn babies into spaces occupied by other players, and they get kind of a free attack to try to do that. One that allows you to travel around the board, around the island. And a sixth sense, which allows you to peek at how the climate will change next round, which is of course something that's not possible in the first edition because it's a die roll, but now it's possible to peek and see what's coming up. Thanks for watching and listening. Please remember older games like Evo, don't stop being good because newer games come out. Take care and happy hunting.